Today we're going to explore what you're currently doing, what your troubles may be with your current way of working, and how you could work, and what kind of benefits that way of working has for your company. So I will be presenting today together with our partner Koen Penneman. I myself have a background in industrial engineering and management. I've been working with CS Systems for a couple of years. I'm personally responsible for every custom sport activity. And that gives me a great position to know how customers have been working in the past and are currently working using our software and our system, our way of working. I would like to ask my partner, Koen Penneman, to introduce himself. Koen, could you do that for us?
Hello, everybody. I'm Koen Penneman. I have an engineering background, and I'm more than 20 years active in the process industry. I own an engineering company with 15 people, and me and my team, we are engineering or doing engineering from concept over detailed engineering. We help our customers with their commissioning, startup, etc. And we do this in all kind of different sectors, pharmaceuticals, food industry, chemicals, petrochemicals, oil and gas storage, water treatment, production, etc. Thank you, Thomas.
All right, thanks for the introduction, Koen. I want to ask you guys, if you ever have any questions during the webinar about the topics we're talking about, or any topics you might think are relevant for us, please contact us using the chat function. We'll try to answer your questions live in the chat or after our webinar in our Q&A session. If we're not able to answer your particular question, we'll make sure that we contact you afterwards. So don't hesitate to contact us. We are so happy to engage with you. So I want to focus for 1 second on who you guys are actually. Like, you guys are all over the globe. You have all kinds of different functions. And that's super interesting. But instead of focusing on the differences, I want to focus on the commonalities you guys share. You guys all want accurate information. You guys want this information to make the right decisions, to do your jobs, and to make your life a bit better. And the issue is that a lot of your departments will actually work with their own local systems. This creates departmental silos, which prevents you guys from working together, which prevent you from working with the latest and most accurate data. And everyone needs that data. But how do you guys make sure that that data is actually up to date? If person A makes a change in a system, will person B know if he looks into another system? Well, that's what we'll be tackling today, is there are 3 main takeaways I want to focus on. A lot of companies have a false sense of being data-driven. They've had some experience, they dabbled with being data-driven, but they don't always know what it means to be truly data-driven. And we would like to take you by your hand and show you what that can mean. What can a data-driven approach mean for you as a company? I want to start out with what a lot of companies do when they start with the idea of working data-driven. The assumption they have is, well, we as a department will start to monitor every specific asset activity. And that will make us more data-driven.
But Thomas, to interrupt you, why do you mention specific activities? I have noticed in industry that all kind of people are looking in their own discipline, and so they are watching their own data for their own activities. How do you deal with that?
Okay, interesting option, but isn't it so that if all data is captured in their own specific systems, they'll all have the right data? Isn't that correct?
No, not at all, because I see in industries that, as well as an engineering department, a purchasing department, a maintenance department, they all work with their own data. And why shouldn't we work with central based data? what you mentioned is an application-driven approach, that every person has its own data silo.
Okay.
Isn't that application-driven data?
Application-driven. So you're saying that instead of making the decisions based on the data, I'm actually making the decisions based on whatever the application feeds me. But shouldn't that still provide useful information, Koen?
Probably it is, but how reliable is this data? Who has brought in this data? What is the data source they're using? You're not sure of it. Everybody still has its own data silo, I think.
Okay, but I thought that, or what at least what a lot of companies think, is that the steps we just described above are actually the ways to become data-driven. But now you're saying that actually you're still working application-driven and that you're not really sure of all this data. I thought that quite a nice data-driven approach.
No, I think everybody is thinking they're working data driven, but I'm not sure how confident this data is, and I don't know if they know which data is being shared by their colleagues or with their colleagues.
Okay. This is probably something that a lot of companies have encountered in the past. They wanted to start working data-driven, and they follow these steps because these steps make a lot of sense for individual silos. But what you forget is that you're still working application-driven. You're still not all fishing from the same data lake, but you have your own little data pools, which are not connected. So you don't have one version of data, and you're not even sure if your version of the data is the latest version. So you're never sure, and you can never say that your piece of data is the latest version. It's complete, accurate, and up to date. So what would you say we can conclude from all of this?
Well, I think that you're focusing on the right issue. Everybody wants to be data-driven. Everybody thinks they are data-driven, but indeed they aren't. Every department nowadays has their own data silos. They maintain their own data bases, their own spreadsheets, their own templates, etc. It's all kind of scattered data, and nobody can confirm if the data is reliable. It's you can count on it. It's probably incomplete. So how reliable is everything? Nobody can guarantee this. There is no one source of data.
Okay.
Well, and I hope you have a solution for that.
I think I do. Because we noticed that not a lot of companies actually want to be data-driven, but they're currently not confident about the state of their data and about the location of their data and how their data is actually acting. Because we know it's quite conceptual, we actually thought of a nice analogy we can use to explain to you what kind of effect the current way of working, application-driven, has, and what kind of effect our way of working is, data-driven way of working is. The analogy we're going to use is, as you can see, a lot of companies have a lot of systems for different departments. Maintenance is working in a different system, operations in a different system, HVAC is in a different system, finance in a different system. And currently they're all trying to fish from their own unique data pool. And those data pools sometimes may share some information. As you can see on the left, these two data pools are very close to each other. So sometimes a fish can actually jump in the other pool. But usually that is just not consistent. The data is not always interchanged because, well, that needs to be designed from the ground up. And if you're working with the focus on the application, you will very scarcely actually have the latest and the most up-to-date data, because you'll never know for sure if somewhere in the other data pool, data has been changed that you're not aware of. So what you usually see as companies evolve and grow, they realize that they're not working with unique data pools. They're working with this huge and giant data lake full of data fish. All of these data fishes are actually carriers of unique data. The moment you start working with different applications, you start making replicas of those fishes. Meaning that if you will catch one of those fish and there's a replica out there, it might be slightly different. So what you need to make sure is that you're not making replicas, you're all fishing from the same data pool, the same data lake, and that all data is actually updated to the right fish. So what a lot of companies then start doing is that they start buying these really fancy AI kind of software, and they really tailor make it to make sure, well, now we get all the data that we want. But what you're truly doing is you're just throwing out your bait and you're hoping to catch the right data. Well, hope in business is not always the best tactic. So in order to become truly data driven, you must understand that sometimes the fish are actually not located where you are located. Where you're looking for the fish, they might not be. There are seasonal changes. There's changes because, well, the fish decides to live somewhere else. All that things happens to data too. Data is constantly changing. The only guarantee that you'll have is that your data will be different a year from now. So you have to make sure that you have a system that actually allows you to all fish from the same lake, that every time you throw out some bait, you'll catch the fish that you want. So it's no longer hoping, but knowing that you get the right data, that data is unique, up to date, and for your application suitable. So that's the real difference between the two versions of working. One is application centric. They all have their own data pool with similar fishes, but they are different because one has data that's up to date and the one therefore does not. Where if you look at the other picture on the right side, if you work data centric, you'll all update the same data. And once you need some new data, you actually start looking for it with baits that will always find the right fish. So like Koen already said before, he was hoping that we have a solution for this. We do. It's a data-centric approach to manage your asset data. This makes sure that all of your asset data is now available across the company. This data will always be up to date, always complete, and you'll always make sure that your data is always shared with your other colleagues. So you're not just focusing on a piece of data, but you're all focusing on the same piece of data. You're maximizing the value you get out of that piece of data. So the concept of data centricity is that you have this one big umbrella data model that actually incorporates all the other data in your company. So your data will now be secured in that data model. Whereas applications may come and go, your data will still be secured in that data model. That way, the true value is not an application. The true value for your company is that data that has become your primary and permanent asset. So of course, you guys would like to know, well, how do you start? Well, we as a company focus on asset data. So we tell you that you have to start using a common denominator. Every bit of data should be relatable to an asset. And in a way to store this in a system is to give this asset a unique asset or location tag. This asset or location tag should be linked across every system/database that should be linked. When you do that, you start with the core. In our vision, the core of asset data is how it's connected and what it looks like. And you'll find that using P90s and 3D models. Once you have that in place, you can expand that system, that structure to all asset data that you have. And you can synchronize that throughout every system that's connected. So you start differently. Instead of hoping you'll catch something, you're actually designing this way of thinking that will have results in a data model that incorporates every bit of data that's relevant to your asset. So what this actually means is you'll have a data model based on unique asset tags. That data model is linked to every bit of software that is containing asset data. That way, all of your asset data will actually be aligned, and so will all your asset activities that produce that data. What you'll see in this infographic is that on the left side, you see how every department used to look at the same asset and process the asset information in their own unique ways. But they're never actually sharing that asset information. So if you want to work on something, you first need to bother management to check for you if everything is in order. Or you find out too late, you come to the asset and you'll find out that the asset has actually changed in shape or in brand or in make, whatever the issue is. The moment you start aligning your activities, the moment your asset data is always up to date, shared, and validated, you'll never have to check again. You'll never have to bother management again to check for you. You'll always are assured that you are looking at the same data as your colleague is, that you're working at the most up-to-date and most valid version of the data. Now, I want to show you guys a video, of how we as a company have developed this system that you can actually implement this way of working. I'm going to start a video in a bit, and I want to ask you guys to start to click the play button. It's below. Somewhere below there will be a play button. So after the video, I will recap whatever happened in the video.
We understand that working with so many different data sources from different disciplines and applications not only takes valuable time away from you, but it can also be very costly. Most companies use multiple applications to access their data. These applications, however, use different tag numbers for the same asset, causing them to be constantly outdated and misaligned. We solve this by giving every asset a unique location tag number, which we match and link throughout other applications. Let's take a gate valve, for example, which has been identified by a unique location tag number. We see that this tag is also used to identify the same gate valve, but in a 3D model. When you open up the data-centric software solution, you can quickly locate and visualize this gate valve in 3D because of the tag number. Now, if you're working with 2D models and would like to see the PNID of the gate valve, you can easily do so, as it has also been identified in the software solution with the same unique location tag number. And you can move swiftly from a 3D model to PNID and vice versa. With the unique location tag number, you can guarantee that every piece of data surrounding this gate valve is up to date and correct. Because of the unique location tag number, when a change is made in one part of the data, this change is updated throughout every application that also uses this particular gate valve. By identifying this particular gate valve with its own unique tag number, you are assured that you and others from different departments will be collaborating on the same data and asset. Whether it be in 1D, 2D, or 3D, you are ensured that the data you use in your work activities are always up to date and available anytime you need it.
So what you just watched is a data-centric setup of how our software can actually help you work in a data-centric way. Every bit of data in our software is actually live generated from one database. That one database is connected to every bit of software you connected to it, meaning that you're always working from one source of truth. Our software can always be connected to any data source, making sure that your asset data will be always up to date, valid, and connected. I now want to give the word to our partner, Koen Penneman, who has used our software in his engineering practices and has a lot of experiences with it.
We as pipe experts, we are working with the Plant4D software since 15 years. The reason we chose this software was its open source vision. The possibilities of sharing all kind of data, and specifically for us then as an engineering company, the possibility to use the data platform starting from the engineering phase. Because for us it's very important that as soon as we start a project, that we can share the correct asset data with all partners during the whole project. And all partners, constructing companies, customers, suppliers are the stakeholders in our project. So to avoid making mistakes, errors, miscommunications, it's important that we can share this correct information. The next user case is about LBC tank terminals in Antwerp. And my good relation, Steven Selleslag, will talk about his experience with the use of Plant4D. We are working more than 10 years for LBC, and since the very beginning, there were two very important strategies we used. First of all, a central reference point. So all kind of data models we produced during that time were based upon one central reference point. The second one is that all data is centralized. Data out of 3D laser scanning point clouds, data out of engineering 3D models we produced during that time. And this had the opportunity that we could share all this data, as well as in feasibility studies, in very early adopting studies, but also during construction and during inspection programs. But I will leave the word now to Steven Selleslag to tell his experiences.
Hi, I'm Steven Selleslag. I'm a senior designer for LBC Tank Terminals in Antwerp. I'm based in Belgium, and I've been with the company for almost 3 years. LBC Tank Terminals is a global provider of responsible logistics solutions. We own and operate midstream and downstream facilities for bulk liquid storage, from ship unloading over intermediate tank storage and filling operations such as truck, train, and drum filling. My company is part of the process industry and operates in the segment of tank storage. We were faced with scattered, outdated, double and missing information. The main challenge was how to reduce the information to single source information, this to facilitate information management. Intuitively, people knew that our original way of working was time and money consuming. And that's how the awareness grew that work processes needed to be streamlined. Part of that was implemented on an operational level, but the decision for a global approach was a more recent one. We started out producing construction drawings based upon centralized as-built information like 3D laser scans, and from there on over to 3D modeling. As far as needed resources was concerned, my suggestion was to split the project into small sub-projects which could be integrated in the budget of a related CAPEX project. Over time, these small improvements would yield and will yield critical mass. The breaking point came when I was personally confronted with loss of assets data and 3D models because of its incompatibility with later releases of that CAD software. Now, being data-centric, Plant4D would solve the assets data and 3D model loss we had been experiencing. Quick implementation of Plant4D was possible in areas where we already had 3D scans. There's 3 things to look out for. Convincing people to go for a global approach is simply not easy. Then, once you've implemented, you need the necessary resources to keep it as built. And as far as brownfield projects are concerned, 3D scans are indispensable. Recent projects that come to mind where we have implemented Plant4D are mini-hazard risk analysis of a hot water circuit protecting breather valves in our HMD extension project. A second one is wall thickness measurements inspection data connected to point cloud database and 4D database info. A third one is the VAS project, quick feasibility engineering study together with 3D modeling and budget estimates based upon existing point cloud data.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this movie with the positive feedback of Steven Salleslag. Some shortcuts to remember. What's very important to Steven was, first of all, the culture. You need a culture of long-term strategy in your company to implement a data-centric approach. Also interesting and important is the small steps he is taking every day. So we believe very much in making these small steps. I hear a lot of companies telling a data-centric approach and 3D modeling and asset management, it's far away from us. It's too difficult. No, not at all. You can start with the data-centric approach from day one, and you will gain lots of money after a few weeks, a year, etc. Also very important is the references he was talking about, for instance, the small projects he was telling. What Steven did, he was doing data sharing through different departments and different phases of a project. And that's very interesting that you break down all data silos in your company and that you share the data. And the more you share, the more you will gain believers of this way of work. So I think Steven did a very good job, and I'd like to thank him for sharing his experiences, because it's a very beautiful example of how you can do good things and reach your results. Okay, Thomas, I give the word back to you.
Thank you, Koen. Thank you for sharing your experiences and your contacts. I think we've come to a point where we can actually conclude what our takeaways are for this webinar. We already covered it a bit. We said that a lot of companies actually have a false sense of being data-driven, and that they're actually using an application-centric approach. We try to show you that using the assumptions we talked about before, where Koen was actually reacting to what I thought, or people in the process industry sometimes think and believe is a data-centric approach. So instead of doing that, we also showed you what an actual data-centric approach is. We actually showed you what it means to be truly data-driven, and that is that you actually share and access all data to everyone at all times. We also gave you a little bit of information of what a data-centric approach can do for your organization. We used the LBC case from Koen's expertise, and that means inevitably all your data will be available. It will all be complete, validated, and up-to-date and transparent, as long as you have that culture that allows you to do this. Because you do really need to have a long-term vision to get the full grasp of what data-driven will do for your company. So I want to ask you guys if you understand what we tried to convey in this webinar. If you have any questions, uncertainties, pointers, please reach out to us in the chat, and we'll try to respond to that directly, or maybe in a bit when we answer the questions, or maybe afterwards. What we can also do for you is set up a live demo, where you go into a conversation with you and see what kind of gains and benefits you are looking for. We'll set up a live demo that shows how our software could work for you. We can also help you set up a business case, or simply start with a call to talk about you. And so we can also learn from you. We can always learn from each other in this industry. So if you want to learn more from us, and you're not really convinced that you want to talk to us directly, we have another webinar coming up next month. This webinar is going to focus on how your power is ultimately derived from your knowledge. And of course, we're going to show you the ways how you can get there and also show you some examples of what that means. Now I actually want to give the word to my esteemed colleague and lovely assistant. Her name is Elaine Foster. And in the background, she has been trying to answer your questions, but some of your questions have purposely been saved for now. Elaine, can you please introduce yourself?
My name is Elaine Foster, and I am organizing this webinar for you guys. And yes, there were some very interesting engagements on the chats. I've been very busy, hardly been even able to keep up with you guys. But some people have quite a bit of difficulty with still understanding a few things. I get a question like, it seems like you are offering a digital twin. What's the difference between your software and a digital twin? Can I ask you guys to answer this one?
Okay, Elaine, thank you. I will answer this question. First of all, let's define what is a digital twin. A digital twin is a virtual copy of your complete process plant. So the copy, it means a 3D model, all kind of data, but all kind of sensor data and configurations. What Plant 4D is not offering is all this kind of sensoring and analytics data at this moment. It's the centralized database, which can be virtualized. So you can generate 3D model, so it seems like a virtual and a digital twin, but it's specifically the primary data source which you need out of your original asset data. So SIA Systems wants to offer this database with the necessary APIs to share with all kind of other software tools which are available in the market. And together, they are building your complete digital twin. I hope this answer is clear enough.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Let's go to the next question. Okay, I do understand that SIA Systems put the data at the core of the organization as a central entity, as you will, but do you offer the opportunity to do any analyses on these data? Well, guys, that's a very interesting one.
Okay, this is one for me too. I'd like to answer this. Indeed, SIA Systems is organizing this core data centralized in the organization. I don't think it's the ambition to analyze this data itself. Plant 4D is using APIs to share this data with other analytics software. It's the data source, the single source of truth, and using APIs, other analytic software tools can do their work.
Okay, wonderful. I keep getting very interesting questions, guys. So give me a minute to catch up. Okay, that's another cool one. What's the most important cultural change for a site, like the one like you have shown in the video?
Okay, thank you very much, Elaine. But you're keeping shooting questions to me. No, the cultural change is quite important, as Stephen told indeed in the video. First of all, everybody needs to be ready and willing to break down its own data silos. So there's no place for any job protection, own data silos, etc. There must be a culture of willing to share the data, so that everybody can has the advantages of a centralized database. That's quite important. What also is important, starting from the management board, that is the long-term vision. Building up this data source and keeping it up to date, it's a long-term strategy, a long-term vision. You need to work on it every day, day after day, making small steps ahead, and you will reach big efforts and results. Okay. Any other interesting question, Elaine?
Absolutely. Just hang on for a moment. Even kijken. Well, let me see. We did the culture change. Okay. You know what? Koen, you can have a little break. I will ask a question to Thomas. Thomas, I get a very cool question from Singapore. I would like to find out if your solutions have been applied to production plants. Case shown today is for a tank farm, which is assets more straightforward to manage. Thomas.
All right, thank you for the question. Well, that's a very good question. The case that we have used today is indeed a tank farm, which is more straightforward to manage, but also more straightforward to communicate. We actually do have a lot of experience with implementing our solution in actual plants and production plants. So if we set up a live demo, we could actually talk about that for you. Sure.
Oh, okay, we have another one. There's a little bit of echo on the line. What does it take to get all the data, such as the 3D models, the PNIDs, and others into your software? Who will take this question?
I can answer that. As Koen already mentioned, it happens. It can happen in one big project or by taking little steps. We have multiple ways of working to get it into the system. But what's most important to know that our system actually is linked to an AutoCAD environment to which engineers are usually already acquainted. Koen, do you have any special insight from your environment in implementing Plant4D?
Not specifically. I'm going to read the question. Well, you have different ways of importing the data into to Plant4D. First of all, you could scatter out all kind of native data and put it in the database, the SQL-based one directly. I know SIA has very good relations with foreign companies to bring in the data. I think they have an office in India too, where they are specialized in making non-intelligent PNIDs intelligent directly into the software. There's also a way of data mining tools to auto-load information. It depends from project to project how to deal with it and what is the value of the available data with the customer. But if you want to share your experience or your case, just call us and let's look together to what you want to gain and to realize. Does that satisfy everybody?
Let's ask the question and see whether people will answer, whether it's clear. If not, you'll have to do better, Koen. In the meantime, I'll just kind of go on with the other questions till I get a response to your question. Thomas, I got a question for you. We were just asked about the solutions being applied to the production plants, the tank farm question about the assets being straightforward to manage. The same gentleman is also asking whether the solution can be presented today let me see, can the solution presented today ingest data from AIMS, like Maximo or SAP?
All right, thank you for this question. We have experience with connecting systems, and that's exactly what we mean. Our software actually serves as your one data model that connects all kinds of systems, like your enterprise asset management systems, Maximo or SAP. So the short answer is yes. Does that satisfy your questionnaire needs?
I don't know. Let's ask the viewers. Let me see this. All kinds of interesting things coming in. Then your license. That one is. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think there's a couple of questions that have already been answered by some of our narrators. I do understand that, Thomas, your answer to the question has been successfully received and understood. And for now, I do not have any open questions that have not had answers yet. So I think we're coming to a good end of the question session. So, gentlemen, take it away.
All right, Elaine, I want to start with thanking you. You've been preparing this session and you've been working really hard on the background to answer these questions. I also want to thank my other colleagues who've been working really hard on this. And I want to give a special thanks to our esteemed partner, Koen Penema. Koen, thank you very much for your insights and your time today.
Thank you, Thomas and Elaine, for this webinar again. And let's work together to this wonderful software and data sharing opportunities we have in the industry together. Thank you.
All right, Koen. The last thanks I want to give is to you all. Thank you all for attending. Thank you all for participating and asking questions. If you have any more queries or interest in us, please reach out to us. We are always happy to engage, always happy to learn from you. And we're also always happy to learn, to share what we've learned in the past. So please make sure to reach out to us. We'd love to get engaged. And thank you all for being here today.